Hey, welcome to Riverside Fly Fishing. Today we're going to talk a lot about Riverside pretty much. So stay tuned, hit the like button, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Share this with your friends. I don't really care. Just do your thing. It'd be fun. All right. So as I said before, this is Riverside Fly Fishing. If you've been following along, you kind of know a little bit about me, and if not, this video is really for you. But I'm going to talk a little bit about how Riverside got started, how it developed into what it is today, and then kind of where it's going in the future. And so that's my goal for today. And like I said, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you follow along, and I really do. I don't know, hope you support the show. You know, it's something I've really been passionate about over the last few years, and I just like to share it with people. So that's what we're going to talk about. We'll just jump right into it. Riverside got started kind of naturally. It wasn't like I just wanted to start a podcast, so I just grabbed like a microphone and all this stuff. It really happened organically, and now we're here today. But this is how it started. Riverside got started in 2020. At this point in time, I was a deputy sheriff for Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. And if you don't remember 2020, it was a tough year for America. We had COVID, and it was also a tough year for police officers. We had protests and even riots all around the country. And so naturally, it's a really stressful time. Now, my job, I was a reserve deputy sheriff, which is a part-time gig. So during my week, I'd be working a full-time job, doing schoolwork, and hanging out with my wife and kids. And then once the weekend would roll around, I would put on my vest and my uniform and my gun and my badge and all this stuff, and I would go downtown to where I live. I live in Louisville, downtown Louisville, and I would help with the riots. Now, I wasn't like on the front lines of it. I wasn't fighting anybody or anything crazy like that. I was more of a support role. But with that said, still a stressful time. And it's stressful for a few reasons. One, because you're kind of going downtown into the middle of all this stuff. But two, also because just crazy times. It was a very divided moment in history. I've never seen our country more divided in my life. Maybe that's because I was like on the front line, or not the front lines, but maybe I was more in the middle of it. And maybe it was really just that polarizing. Maybe society at that point really was that split on this issue. I remember seeing friends and family bickering and all this different stuff and fighting over all this stuff, and it was a tough. I feel like I was stuck in the middle of it, and so like I said, needless to say, on top of work, full-time, school, family, I was doing all this stuff, and I was just stressed to the max. It got to the point about a week or two in, I was like, you know what, I need to just like let go of all this stuff and just disconnect. So I was talking to my wife. I said, look, Anna, my wife's name is Anna, by the way. I was like, look, Anna, I need to go fishing. And it sounds weird. I just need to do it just to get my mind off of everything, disconnect from everything for a little bit. And I just need to kind of get away. And so I grabbed my fishing rod, went fishing. I didn't catch a single fish all day. But it just goes to show that fishing isn't necessarily about the fish, because it was one of the best days I've ever had fishing in my entire life. And here's why. When I was out there, it was an opportunity for me to just lay everything out on the table. I was away from everybody. I was alone on the lake. Nobody was near me. I was praying to God. I was laying all my stress at the feet of Jesus at the cross. And man, it's like you have all this stress, and then you finally just release it. And it was at that time that I realized that I was in God's presence. And it was at that time that I realized just how important entering into His presence spiritually actually is. Obviously, God's everywhere. It's called being omnipresent or all being, right? But entering into His presence spiritually is a totally different thing. And so I realized at that point, one, how important it is to enter into His presence, but two, that I could use fishing as a way to do that. So that was a pivotal moment for me. Fast forward maybe a month, my dad went out and bought us some fly rods. I'd never fly fished at this point, and I tried it. Immediately fell in love with it. It's just superior. It's just a superior way to fish. If you disagree, you're wrong. I don't care. You're just wrong. but but yeah, and so I immediately became hooked on fishing. And so at that point, fly fishing was, I mean, that's how I connect with God. And I know a lot of people like that. A lot of people don't necessarily connect in the church pew or go into Bible studies. And although those are really beneficial things too, I don't think we should overlook that. But a lot of people connect with God in nature, and I'm one of them. And so this continued on. I kept going fishing and kind of, connecting with God through that for a long time. And then eventually, I decided I wanted to share this experience. And so what I did is I created Riverside. I created an Instagram page. I created a YouTube channel. I made like 2 videos over a few months on YouTube, and I realized quickly that's a lot harder than you think. Like, it's a lot of work goes into that. And I was really inspired by these guys. They're called Wildfly Productions and Blue Line Fly Company. They have this series on YouTube called the Short Bus Diaries. Basically, they rented a short bus and like renovated it. Or I guess they bought it and then renovated it, put beds in there, and then they just travel all over the place. They went to Canada and Colorado on this short bus, just fishing and having a good time. And so I was like, I want to do something like that, but like for Jesus. And so I grabbed a video camera and took it to the river, and I started making videos. Like I said, it's a lot more work that goes into it, like a lot more work than you would think. Because you gotta pack up your gear, you gotta take it to the river, you gotta unpack it, lug it around with you while you go fishing, find a spot, set your camera up, record yourself fishing, and then after that, you do that a whole bunch, get a whole bunch of footage, and after you do that, you gotta record a monologue that you've written, then you gotta like piece it all together, add some music, and all this. It's a complicated process. And it's a lot more than I expected. And long story short, I realized that at this point in life, not sustainable for me. I can't do it. Those guys can, because that's like their full-time job. But I have a job, like a full-time job outside of that. And I also have a wife and kids, and I'm in school. And like, it's just not happening. And so after that, I just kind of was thinking about how do I want to go forward from here? Like, what do I want to do at this point? And I decided that maybe Instagram would be a good way to go. So I have an Instagram, and I made some reels. My goal was to make like a short study on Romans, and you can use Instagram reels. They're like 90 seconds each. So it's not that long of videos, but they're easy to make, and that's something you can do over a long period of time without getting burnt out. So I was doing that for a while, and then I realized quickly that that's not really effective, because you can't really gauge how well a video is going to do. You can kind of guess, but really, at the end of the day, it's all left up to the algorithm. And at that point, it's like, I don't know. So it's like, the first way wasn't sustainable. This way wasn't really effective. And so now I'm trying to figure out a way, like, how can I do both? Or find something that is both sustainable over a long period of time and also effective and actually reaches people and impacts people. And so I thought about this for a long time, and then I landed here. I landed where I'm at today, and that's this. A few weeks ago, I was kind of pondering over Riverside. I was praying over Riverside, trying to figure out where I wanted to go with it. And I decided I wanted to go back to YouTube, making YouTube videos, but not the kind that I was making. I wanted to make YouTube videos where it's just studying and talking about Scripture and talking about Jesus and talking about Christianity and the Christian life and what that looks like for us in 2022. And so I decided that that's kind of the route or direction that I was going to go. And so I thought about it and kind of figured out a plan. Essentially, the office that I was at, it wasn't really conducive to recording. I was in the office with the furnace, and so every time the furnace kicked on, it sounded like a jet engine. And then it was a busy office, people coming in and out, people calling me on the phone, all kinds of different stuff, and that's all. It's all good for, normal office, but if you're wanting to record, it's just different. You don't need those distractions or that background noise or anything like that. And so what I did is I found this old office. That's where I'm at now. I found this old office. I cleaned everything out of it. I had this awesome lady named Barb at our church, had her paint it, and I put all my stuff in here, and essentially now I have an office studio. Now it's not finished yet. I'm gonna put another bookshelf over there, and I'm gonna put sound equipment over here, and like more video equipment and stuff like that. So it'll like I'm not done yet, but I'm getting there. I'm at a point now where I can kind of record. But I cleared up this office, made this studio space, and my plan is to make YouTube videos, hopefully weekly. I mean, really, if not more than one a week. At some point, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But weekly videos, and Riverside really has 3 goals. 1, teach the Bible. 2, help Christians walk through life in a biblical way. And 3, build a community of people who either love the outdoors or love Jesus or both. So teach the Bible, help Christians walk through life in a biblical way, and build a community of Christian outdoorsmen and women. And so everything that I do will hopefully be geared towards these 3 goals. So here's my plan. Like I said, I'm wanting to make weekly videos. In each of these videos, I'm going to talk about something biblical related. I think I'm going to actually talk about Genesis first. Essentially, my students, I'm a youth minister, my students and I have been studying through Genesis on Wednesday nights. We started with Genesis 1, 2, and 3, the story of the creation and the fall of man, and then we've been just taking it story by story. Not chapter by chapter, but more like story by story. And we'll dissect it and read it, and then I'll ask them, like, hey, what are your thoughts? Like, pretty much what's the application you can pull out of this? Or like, what's the moral of the story? And then how can you apply that to your life? Which is really that's a good way to interpret the Bible. You can't read yourself into it. It's more so, what is this saying in this context? And then pulling that meaning out and then applying it. And you would be shocked at the responses we get. Some of them are kind of goofy because they're middle schoolers and high schoolers. But like some of them are like profound. And it's really cool to see your students engage with the Bible in that way, but also really take it to heart and like really take ownership of it. So that's really cool. So we're gonna start talking about Genesis, I think, first. But every week we're gonna have a video on the Bible. I'd like to, I think, eventually get into like political and like cultural issues. And that's kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about that, to be honest with you. I think there's a time and place for politics and cultural topics and things, but I don't ever want that to be my main focus. Obviously, the main focus is God. The main focus is Jesus. But if I'm going to be helping people walk through life in a biblical way, then we're going to have to confront these political issues and these cultural issues. And I know a lot of Christians who kind of on both extremes. There aren't many in the middle, but on both extremes, it seems like on one hand you have Christians who don't touch politics at all. They never talk about it. They don't think they should talk about it for whatever reason. I mean, some of them are good reasons. But on the other hand, you have people who make politics their god and who make it their idol, and it just turns into a mess. And so that's what I don't want to happen. But I think there's a time and place for politics. I think there's a time and place to talk about cultural issues. And so I hope to do that in a way that's pleasing to God, but also beneficial to you. And so we'll continue with the fishing content on YouTube, on Instagram. We'll continue with even some fishing content on YouTube. We'll continue with all that stuff. But we're also going to add in a biblical aspect, because that's really what this is about. I don't want this to just be some show about fishing, because every guy and their mom has a fishing channel on YouTube or on Instagram, and that's great. Like, I love fishing too, don't get me wrong, but I want this to be more than that, because to me, fishing is so much more than just fish. It's so much more than just being in nature. To me, fishing is in a way spiritual. And so that's the kind of the direction I'm going with it. I don't want to just have a fishing channel. I want to make an impact. And so lastly, it's not going to be a long video. Lastly, I want to end with this. This is, I think this is important. Listen, I have about 250 followers on Instagram. I have a handful of followers on YouTube. It's not much, okay? It's not like I have this awesome following or anything like that, and it's not really about that. And I don't say that to my own horn or anything, because it's not much. But with that said, I I do want to earn the support of all my followers. So if you follow me on Instagram or on YouTube or on Facebook or anything like that, I appreciate it. And I don't just want it to be like, oh, I'm not asking for handouts. I really want to earn it. And so the reason I say that is because, I've put in a lot of work to get to where I'm at today. Like a lot of work just to get here with this tiny little studio, with this one little camera, and I don't even have lighting equipment right now. I'm using like a lamp. And so I've worked really hard just to get to where I'm at today. But with that said, I'm hitting the ground running, and I'm doubling down even more than I ever have before. And with that said, your support is more than appreciated. I really can't express how much I appreciate just you even following my page or supporting my ministry, or some of you guys have bought t-shirts and like hoodies and stuff. That's really cool to see, because like who am I? I'm just some random guy who loves fishing, but even more so loves Jesus. So thank you for your support. Like I said, I want to earn your support. I don't want it to be a handout. I want to earn it. And that's my plan. My plan is to earn it. And so from here on out, that's the goal. And yeah, next video you'll see, it will be a video on Genesis. So I hope you follow along. Also, this is really cool. I'm really excited about this. So my sister, her name's Hannah. She's super artistic, but she's been working on making some merchandise for Riverside. And I know you're probably like, why are you making merchandise if you have like no followers? Like, I just do. Leave me alone. I like doing that kind of stuff. We're both artsy people, and we have to create something, and so we're doing it. But she's making some really cool merchandise. This merchandise, I mean, she's been working on it for a long time. I've seen some sneak peek, like preview stuff about it, and I'm really excited, to be honest with you. Like, this isn't just like, oh, it's like a random Riverside logo. Like, it's really cool. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for some videos coming up on Genesis, and just biblical stuff. And yeah, I appreciate you, and I hope you have a good day.